Boil the frog slowly, you're a frog in a pot. What will you do when the water gets hot? Will you jump out or will you get cooked? Listen to the show and you will be hooked.
Welcome to Boil the Frog Slowly, a radio program that answers the question, are politics hazardous to your health? We go where mainstream media stops. Co-hosted by Sebastian Sanzota, a marathon runner, a vegetarian, a former healthcare professional with 5 years of military experience in the U.S. Navy, including 2 tours in the Persian Gulf, primarily working with advanced airborne early warning radar aircraft. Sebastian is experiencing firsthand the ill effects of EMFs. He is passionate to share his medical background, experience, and research in an effort to educate and save others from boiling in this hot health war soup. And co-hosted by me, Pat Rouleau, author of Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, and host-producer of the nationally syndicated radio show, Speak Up and Stay Alive Patient Safety Radio, heard on 220 radio and cable television stations throughout the country. The books and archive shows are available at speakupandstayalive.com. I too have been slowly and unknowingly boiled by hidden EMF hazards and have jumped out of the pot to tell all. You can listen to all previous and current Boil the Frog programs at boilthefrogradio.com, at iHeartRadio, and on our very own internet radio station, speakuptalkradio.com. I encourage you to share this program with as many people as you possibly can, week after week, as we gig out some of the leading issues we face today to help you understand, function, and ultimately survive in today's toxic environment proliferated by big money. Thank you for joining us as we jump out of the pot. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, always looking to bring you a guest with a message that can help you stay healthy and out of the healthcare system. Last week, I talked about geopathic stress, those harmful energies emitted from the earth that interfere with the healthy functioning of cell metabolism in our body. Energy, such as the earth's grid system, underground faults, or underground water veins that emit an energy that can drain our body's bioenergetic field and can be harmful if we spend long periods of time above those areas. And these can affect our health in so many ways, from insomnia, back pain, joint pain, headaches, all the way to cancers. Yet, our doctors seldom think or know enough about this to ask the right questions, which in many instances may lead to misdiagnoses. So it's up to us to be informed and keep today's conversation in our minds as we travel through our own personal health issues. And who better to help with this than my new friend, Werner Brandmaier, a native of Austria who has an engineering background and more than 10 years of experience in the high-tech medical field. As a second-generation dowser, he grew up with an energetic understanding of our body and the environment. After helping his spouse recover fully from cancer, Werner began to expand his practice of traditional Feng Shui toward principles of true health. In 2000, he founded the Institute of Feng Shui and Geopathology in Portland, Maine, with the intent to raise awareness about geopathic stress in the United States. He teaches seminars and workshops all over the country and is a member of the American Society of Dowsers. And this is a topic that grabs my interest, so it is with great excitement and enthusiasm to welcome you to the show, Werner.
Hi, Pat. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it is our pleasure to have you here. Now, I have just studied your websites thoroughly, and there's so much excellent information. I would love to get to all of it today, and we're going to try to jam as much in as we can. And you said on your website that not everything created by Mother Earth is healthy for us humans. So let's begin by talking briefly. What is geopathology, and why should we care?
That's a good question. You know, geopathic stress is something which is pretty well known in Europe. So in common knowledge, if you ask anybody on the street, they've heard that geopathic stress and what they are called earth rays in the common language are practically always connected with cancer. And this is, what was the start of the interest of science about 100 years ago in the 1920s and 1930s in Germany. With the topic was that people noticed that cancer cases were sometimes accumulated in specific houses. They even called those cancer houses, and other houses next to it were not. And so why was that? And people noticed that, knew about the family history for their lifetimes and for generations. And they saw that the mother had died of cancer, and 10 years later the daughter had the same illness. And they noticed that the daughter had taken over the apartment or the house, of the family later on with her family, and she slept in the same spot. And this is where people started to use dowsing as an energy testing method and found out that there are specific earth lines or earth rays which always seem to appear where somebody gets sick. And what they do is they drain a person's qi. In the Chinese medicine, in the Eastern medicine system, we talk about qi, the life force of a person. When we sleep at night, when we rest, the qi should recover, like we should recharge our battery every night. During the day, we are active. We are, in our fight and flight mode. There's a lot of stress around us. And at night, we should be able to rest and stay calm. And the body in this resting mode is able to recharge the batteries and to recover. Geopathic now, from the word pathology, the study of sickness, and geo, the earth, is an energy in nature which makes us sick. And there are, lots of energies and plants and any substances in nature which are good for us and others which are toxic. So nature has all kind of facets. It's just sometimes healthy to stay away from those unhealthy energies or substances. If you look at the yin and yang symbol, where the energy rises on one hand, if you look at it, a day cycle, the sun comes up, the light comes up, and then it shines most brightly at noontime, and then the sun goes down in the evening, and it recovers during night, and then a new day starts. And geopathic energies are on the second half of the energy, of this energy cycle. So they are where the energy contracts. If you look at a life cycle, this is where everything goes back to dust. And a new life only can start again when the old cycle comes to an end. Otherwise it would go nowhere. So a cycle needs to be fulfilled, and geopathic stress is an energy which increases the rotting process. So this is why a lot of insects, for example, are drawn to this energy, like ants. So if you have ants in your house, an ant problem, and you get the Terminator every year to spray toxins around your foundation to get rid of the ants, and every year they come back because they just follow these lines of energy, and likely then these energy lines go through your house as well and affect the people who live inside the house. So just by watching nature, we see that there are trees which grow crippled next to perfectly growing trees of the same type next to them, because a tree, unfortunately, cannot step away from a location or a position, so it has to deal with it. And very often you see these very crippled trees on geopathic stress or on a location like that.
Right, so little clues we can look for. We're going to talk further about that. Now, there's a practice called dowsing where folks can determine where some of these energy lines or these grid lines lay or lie. Can you just briefly explain dowsing?
Dowsing is an ancient tradition, was used for hundreds and thousands of years. I have some evidence of Chinese emperors who made it into law that every space had to be doused before people would build a house on, and this was thousands of years ago. I have pictures from the Middle Ages where miners, used dowsing to find ores in the ground. Water dowsing is the most common use of this art. And my father was a dowser, so I remember as a little boy walking around with him when he looked for places for farmers where people should put a well in. So what dowsing is an intuitive craft where you are able to connect with a very subtle sense inside your body, to connect with your own intuition and register changes of energy or changes of fields, of energy fields, which are too subtle that your normal five senses can detect them. Sometimes people use instruments like a pendulum or some rods, an L rod, or even my father often used Y rods made out of tree branches, and you hold them in a very specific way. If people really want more information, they maybe on the website, which we explain later, there is a lot of information on dowsing. But dowsing is the connection with an intuitive part of your own body. Your body, in most cases, knows by vibration what is good and what is not good for you. And so just when the brain comes in the way and tries to rationalize and understand everything, the big mess up begins. So just follow your gut.
Wow. I am so interested in this. I actually looked it up and found a dowsing group in Ohio, the Ohio Buckeye group. I reached out to them. I'm going to learn more about this. I find it extremely fascinating. People don't pay enough attention to those quiet moments that they have, or they probably don't even have any quiet moments anymore to really feel some of those changes of energy. So very interesting. Well, now, you say that at least 30% of all chronic medical conditions are derived from this cause, geopathic stress, and that's a big number, which means that we really need to be mindful of our home and work environments, as they most certainly contribute to this, especially our homes. So with that, I'm going to refer back to some test questions from your website that I shared on the show last week to get everyone to think about their environment. So now let's discuss some of those questions and answers, if you would. And this geopathic stress test, if you answered more than 4 of these questions, then you really need to pay attention, do more research, and take some action. Now, the first relate to sleep. The questions were, does it take you a long time to fall asleep? Do you regularly wake up during the night, especially between 2 and 3 a.m.? Do you feel tired in the morning, not well rested, even if you had 8 hours of sleep? Are any of your children restless sleepers? Do any of your children have nightmares? Does your baby move to the sides or ends of the crib or tend to fall out of bed? And does your baby cry for no apparent reason? What does a yes answer tell us about all of these sleep-related questions?
As I mentioned earlier already, sleep is a really important factor for our health, for rebuilding our strength and recharging our batteries. And if we don't sleep well, we are already getting in trouble. And it takes a while because the body always balances things out and then at some point works on its own reserves. But if you use those up, this is when it gets really dangerous. So geopathic stress is overall a draining energy. So it drains you, it weakens you, it tires you, it exhausts you. Typically chronic fatigue and depression, and all those are follow-ups from a long-term draining situation. The first sign, I would say, to see that something is not working well. And with babies, the interesting part is that babies respond very spontaneously, not influenced by what we explain or what they might think. They just react one or the other way. The scary part for many parents, and I had 3 kids and they're grown up now, but is that there are not many choices if a baby cries at night and wakes up all the time at night. I mean, either they're hungry or they need a change, they're nappy, or something is really wrong or they're sick. And they respond very naturally to those fields in the way that they try to avoid them, and they try to crawl away from those draining energies. And so what happens sometimes is that babies end up in one part of their bed, and when the parents check on them, every few hours they check on them and they put them back and tuck them in the middle of the bed, and then they check an hour later, and the baby is again at one side of the bed, and sometimes they even fall out of their bed. And if this is not possible because there is a crib or something which holds them in the space, then they just cry and wake up all the time. So with babies, it's very obvious. But the same thing is with grown-ups. Just when we grow up, what usually happens is that we just take the energy in. We lose a bit this immediate instinct of getting out of the way. So we just take it in, and then we don't sleep well. And especially when we wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning, which a lot of people do once you talk with them about it, that shows us that something is wrong in this direction of geopathic stress, because the energy, the intensity of those fields are not the same during the day and during the night. It's a bit like a sinus wave. It goes up and down over the 24-hour cycle. And the top, the biggest intensity is between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So you charge up all night, and then at some point you just hit this threshold, and this is when you wake up. And another typical sign is you just watch yourself or judge yourself how well rested you are in the morning. It's not always the case that you just fall asleep easily, because sometimes you just fall into a big dip, kind of, because you're so knocked out and you're so exhausted that you just fall into a big sleep. But then it's either not restful, or when you wake up in the morning, you're just not rested, because that should be the outcome. When you lie in bed for 6, 7, 8 hours, you should be really rested and fresh the next day. So if this is not the case, so if any of those things happen, at least it's important to follow up this trail here and to give it a bit more consideration here in order to make sure that this is okay, or that this is not the case.
And I think you're talking to a lot of people. More and more I hear of folks that are unable to sleep and have poor sleeping patterns and wake up and don't feel rested. And one of the first things I've always told them to do is clear that bedroom of all electrical devices, get rid of the wireless router, get rid of the decked phone, don't sleep with your cell phone. So those are some things we can do EMF wise. But if we're really laying above, say, like a water vein or a fault line how would we know that and move our bed? How would we know that would be the problem?
That is. Let me just say that is very important in times like these, where we live in with all our electronics, and especially also our children's electronics, because there is no way that we, can take those away from them anymore. I noticed this myself, so with my own kids. But it is a very, very good advice to just keep the electronics out of the bedroom, at least at night, and if you can, just turn off your wireless router at night. If we talk about something like underground water veins or those things under the bed, there are some basic practices or exercises which one could do. One is called body dowsing, and I have links on my websites, and we can maybe point towards them where it's a bit more explained. Mm-hmm. And it's something you just go through there for a few minutes. It just takes a few minutes to do that, but you use your own body as a dowsing instrument. And you can test with your own body if something is good for you or not good for you. And the question here in the bedroom would be just, is the bed a safe place for me to sleep? And when your body moves forward, this is the exercise. You just stand very still, put your feet together, close your eyes, and you feel that the body is slightly moving. It's not locked in because it's a bit of an unstable position. And when the body moves towards something, there is an attraction and an energetic resonance. An attraction is forward, which stands for yes. And if it's pushed backwards, then this stands for a no. If we had a little bit more time, I would go through the exercise here with you, but maybe people can look it up, and I even have a little video on my website. So you can do an exercise like this, and if you practice a little bit, most people can douse that. I would say from my workshops that about 70% of people pick this up even the first time we try it. And with a little practice and exercise, you get more confident with it, and more, because you need to trust yourself. Mm-hmm. So just put your mind on the side and just trust your gut feeling, and you can get pretty quickly pretty good with it. Another funny aspect to that is the behavior of your pets, and most animals respond like humans and avoid those energy lines and grids and zones areas which are draining, like all big farm animals like horses and cows and sheep. And if you look at it more from the pet side, dogs avoid those energies like all the other ones do. So a dog would not naturally lie down on a geopathic stress zone. The only other animal which does that, except of the insects and the bees and the ants and the wasps, are cats. Because cats are always different, it seems, from anybody else. So the point is, if your cat loves your bed, that is at least something which should make you suspicious. Okay. And I understand that people say, oh, the cat goes with the body warmth, and sometimes people tell me, oh, the cat and the dog are on my bed. But when we check them, we find out that the cat is exactly where the line crosses the bed, and the dog is on the other corner of the bed. And I really, over the years, I had so many cases where people show me on a floor plan the favorite spots of the cat in the house, and you see already the grid line and the raster of the geopathic stress grid through the house. Wow. So this happens all the time.
That is crazy information, but yeah, I have a cat as well, and so I've been watching where she sleeps. Now, what about metal bed frames in the room? I think I mentioned that to you, that as I've been thinking about this, I actually went into my bedroom with a compass, and everywhere I walk in the room, the compass shows the true north. And when I put the compass on top of the bed where I would be laying, the compass spins so that now north is pointing in a different direction, which tells me it's got to have some kind of an antenna effect with the springs. Does that have anything to do with geopathic stress, or is there something else going on there?
Yeah, in general, metal reflects geopathic stress. So if you have any metal bed frame, and especially the head or the foot part of the bed out of metal, because the reflection is more horizontally over, so this is what we try to stay away. The springs have a response by themselves because they are these spiral versions, and they funnel the energy and make like all these like mini tornadoes out of, if there is geopathic stress under, they spread it all over the space, and this is why the magnetic field also gets irritated. So ideally, people should not use metal springs in their mattress, and my personal favorite is always natural latex material, but latex beds need a special underbed because you can't box it in with the standard American beds. The boxed-in ones, because the mattress needs to breathe. Otherwise, there is the danger of getting mold. Into the bed. Mm-hmm. So these are the European bed styles where you have slats under the bed and the mattress can breathe from below. Mm-hmm. But the best thing is to keep all the metal out of your bed to be in the safe place. Mm-hmm.
Excellent advice. All righty, let's head on to some of the other questions, and these are tied to your home and your health. One of the questions was, are there any chronic health issues you or a member of your family are experiencing? And was anybody challenged with cancer living in your house? What does that tell us?
The original research, the European research, which dates back 80, 90 years now, was done with cancer cases, and this is what geopathic stress is most known over there. But there is other research done. In the 1970s, there was a big study done in the Austrian government in the district of Salzburg. In 25 school districts, the school children had been investigated, and their ability at school to focus, and today we would say typically ADD, ADHD issues, and then a dowser went home to their houses and checked where they were sleeping, because geopathic stress is a part of nature and is everywhere, right? So it's not to avoid this in general all the time, but not to make sure we don't spend a lot of time there. You know, you just think of it, if we walk through a room and there is a smoker in there, it's fine. We walk through there, we walk out again, and we take a few breaths and the body clears itself out, so it doesn't damage us forever. But if we have to stay in this room for 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day, then it definitely gets to us. And this is similar with geopathic stress. So we want to just get it away from places where we spend a lot of time. And part of it is our bed, where we spend 7-8 hours every day, a third of our life. And another spot is our workplace, or for the school children, where they sit at school for so long. And when I came to America here, I had 2 little kids. My first 2 kids were born in Austria, and we brought them with us, of course. And so I went to their school and talked to the teacher and explained what I was doing. And so the teacher moved the tables around so we would just get away from those lines which are there. Because in those studies from the 1970s, they just found that as soon as you would change that, the kids would improve in their tests and in their work in general. And then when I talked to the teacher like a week later again how things were going, she told me, because we had marked those lines with tape on the ground, and she said the next day she came in, all the marks were gone, and the janitor had cleaned them up because he thought there was some stayovers from some project. But she remembered anyway where the lines went through the room. But this should be done with every school class, and so the point is, back to your question, it's not just cancer. Cancer is just the really final product,
right.
and effect of it, and it takes usually about 6-8 years, sometimes even 10 years, to come to such a dramatic outcome. But it starts early, it starts when people suddenly notice they have allergies with 40. They never had allergies in their whole life, and suddenly they are sensitive to all kinds of things. Because the thresholds of the body, where the body heals itself, they get reduced over time, because the whole system gets weaker and weaker. And so it goes through everything. So any chronic long-term issue is very often is one of the components with it is geopathic stress. It's not the cause for everything, but it just contributes in an overall weakening, draining, and situation to many, many, many issues, of all kinds.
Right. It's a contributing factor, and I was thinking about your conversation about the schools, and thinking about all the wireless technology in the school, there's got to be a combined effect of EMF and geopathic stress in the school.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I remember that the high school next to this elementary school where my kids went to, a few years ago, proudly announced a new cell phone tower on top of their roof.
Yep.
I mean, this is against the law in Europe. You're not allowed by law to have a cell phone tower on a school, on a hospital.
Right.
And here it's the opposite.
Yep.
Because they get some revenues out of that, I guess.
And that is a frightening social comment, that we are allowing that to happen and turning a blind eye. And you mentioned before you can't take this away. Well, yeah, you can't take it away, but there are proper ways to install the computers in the school system by using wired technology, not getting rid of the technology, but using what we have in a wise and caring fashion, and not just putting the cell towers on top of the buildings just to collect the revenue. Meanwhile, the goldfish in the classroom die.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
All righty. Let's talk about some of the questions that apply to the outside of your home. Some of your questions were, do any of your plants, trees, or bushes on your property have abnormal growth patterns? And you alluded to this before. Do you have any problems with ants or other insects in your house, such as wasps, bees, and ladybugs? So you mentioned briefly, but let's just go a little bit more in depth. Why is this something we should pay attention to?
These are the typical signs in nature, and again, from consultations I did over the years, once you make people aware of it, they will tell you, oh, there is this dead tree stump out of my window here, of my bedroom window in the garden, and whatever we try to plant there, nothing will grow there properly. And then you just imagine the line, and you see how the line comes from the tree and goes through the house, straight through the bed. So if you have an evergreen fence, and there's always, I have pictures for my seminars where I show a fence of evergreen shrubs, and there is one in the middle which is yellow, and it's much smaller than the other ones. And no matter what the owner does there, always replant a new one every other year, it just would not grow there because there is a line crossing there. So responses of plants and insects and nature in general sometimes give us an idea where things happen in the house. If there is an ant infestation at one corner of the house, typically, this is where the line comes into the house, because every spring the ants just spread out and follow out, and they mainly follow those specific lines and energies, because that's what they love, and they see, wherever they go, and this is where they come into your house. I had cases, seriously, where people from the dowsing community, who know already how to treat cases like that and, figure out what to do with ants, had carpenter ants in the house for years, 6-8 years, and they put one of my home harmonizers on the wall because they didn't know what else to do anymore, and the ants disappeared from the house. They just moved out, and it was nothing magic or something. They just don't find the energy which they love anymore, and so they look for it somewhere else.
Let's talk about your home harmonizers. So what are you talking about, a home harmonizer?
Look, I'm from, as you mentioned earlier, from my background, I'm an engineer, right? And so one thing is I was interested in those energy fields and later on in Feng Shui, and I used Feng Shui for my work because we often had to rebuild departments in hospitals to bring in new machines like computer tomographs and MRIs. And so once I integrated Feng Shui, flow of energy, and principles there, we found that people loved our ideas and our concepts. So it was very successfully combined with the work I did. But then there is the issue, if you find geopathic stress in your house or at your workplace, the simplest way is just to move away from it. Sometimes it's enough to move the bed for 2 or 3 feet to another wall or to another part of the room. And sometimes this is not possible because it's too restricted from the size of the room. So what do you do then? Are you just moving, or what are you doing? So the German spirit here, engineering spirit in the back, is not to run away from a problem, but to find a solution. And so I worked with some inventors in those early times and researchers, and they one of them was a medical doctor for internal medicine, and he was clairvoyant since childhood also. So he could see those structures in patterns and describe them more in detail. And what we did is we developed tools and devices, for example, to shield an entire building from geopathic stress. So it has to go on a wall because it builds up a subtle energetic grid inside the house energy field, and it neutralizes the entire building, sometimes several floors and big buildings. With one device, you get all geopathic stress out of it, which is, pretty great to work with, and it's a bit of a magic bullet, if you want to say so. So you don't even have to know where the grids are or whatever. You just put this in your house and you clean up your space energetically. So this is called the main product in this line for spaces, to clear out spaces and protect spaces, is called the home harmonizer. But then we have personal tools for people also, who are on the move or whenever they go, and we have, all kind of other devices.
Right, you have the personal pendant that one could wear. So now if one is wearing this small pendant, would they need the home harmonizer if that pendant was on them all the time?
Yeah, that is a good question. The different tools are definitely redundant and overlapping, but they also do additional things which the other ones don't. For example, the home harmonizer protects your space. A house energy space reaches out about 15 feet beyond the walls outside the house. Okay, so the aura field of the house, if you want to say so. So there are a number of issues one can have with the space. One is that the neighbors are too close. If your neighbors are closer than 30 feet from your house, which means 2 times the 15 feet distance, then your energy field overlaps. Very often in a more urban environment, the houses are wall to wall, and then you feel the neighbor in your space. So the home harmonizer holds this out. Or if the house is irregularly shaped, with an extension here and an attached garage there, the more irregularly shaped is the protective natural energy field around the house is indented and not as strong as it would be with a simple rectangular house. That's why in old times they built salt boxes, right? So this is what the personal shield, the pendant, cannot cover because it does all those house balancing and on a bigger scale. On the other hand, the personal pendant, and especially here the Pro pendant, has additional features in there protecting a person's energy field against all kind of weird energies from the outside. And this goes beyond the geopathic and the EMFs from your phones and environment where you stay in, to other people's energies. Very often people in serving others' professions like teachers and nurses and who care about others have problems with protecting their own energy field against these drains. And at the end of the day, when they come home, they're totally exhausted because all their energy is gone. So the pendant helps to hold this energy for the person together. And then on top of it, it strengthens the communication within the body, the communication of the cells to each other. And we did many tests with athletes who increase their strength and their balance significantly, like unbelievably, from 1 second to the other, just by bringing this close to their body energy field within half an inch. So you don't have to wear it as a pendant. You can put it in a pocket if you want, just maybe hopefully within half an inch of the body. There are videos on my websites where you can see people's responses who just are totally amazed how different the body feels from 1 second to the next.
Give us that website address for the home harmonizers and the pendant.
So let me give you 2 addresses. One is called geopathology.com, geo like in geography, pathology, geopathology.com, which has a lot of the theoretical explanations and explanation about dowsing as well. And there is a button there with all the other buttons which says shop. So that's the easy way to get to the shop and to get to the products. The direct address of the shop or the direct name of the shop is called Geopathic Stress Solutions.com, plural.
Right.
GeopathicStressSolutions.com, and there are 3 S's in the middle, just in case you're wondering.
Right. Excellent. Now, these pendants, is the frequency embedded in the metal? Is that how that works?
Yeah, we use mainly silver, sterling silver, and gold, 24-karat gold, for the products because we did a lot of experiments. We found that the silver and the gold are the best to hold the frequency program. There's a very specific frequency program, energetic program imprinted in those pieces.
Okay.
So it's information imprinted goes together with the symbol on there in order to hold it in and grind it in. It immediately affects the frequency response of our body, because the body react some frequencies because everything is energy,
Right.
as we might know, right?
Right. Excellent. Excellent. I'm going to look into that myself personally. Okay. Other questions you answered. The one is one of your cat's favorite spots on your bed or in your favorite chair. I thought we covered that one. We get into some questions about electronic devices and EMF, and we highlight that quite often. So we don't have to go into great detail about that, but just some basic questions. And do you have wireless internet in your house? Do you have a TV or cordless phone or computer in your bedroom? Do your kids own at least 2 electronic devices that they use daily? Do you or a family member use about 1,000 minutes a month or 30 minutes a day on a cell phone? Do you use a microwave? Is there a cell phone tower within a few hundred feet of your home or workplace or your children's school? And listeners to this show know that we have covered that quite thoroughly. Do you have anything briefly that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to just make people aware of one issue, and this is that water is an incredibly medium to store energy, and we are made out of 70% water, right? So there are pictures on some of my websites where I show if you have a sip of water out of a microwave, a sip of water, and you look at your blood, 30 seconds later, your blood is a total mess. Your blood cells, if you look at it on the microscope, you see that the blood cells stick together like crazy. And when the blood sticks together, it gets sluggish, and this is when you get tired and think you need more coffee, and coffee messes up your blood even more. So, but the point I want to make is that the frequency range of a microwave oven and a cell phone is exactly the same.
Thank you.
You know, just the power is different.
Yep.
And what people are not aware of is that they carry their water bottle, because now they've learned over the years that hydration is important and they should always drink enough water. They carry their water bottle and their cell phone in the same bag, which means instead of like 30 seconds, it takes like 20 minutes, or they have their bottle on the table, on the desk at the office next to their computer. But, after a few minutes instead of after a few seconds, their water is microwaved. And so all the benefits they should and could get from their water is ruined. And the opposite is the case.
I think that is such a huge, when I heard you say that on a previous show of someone else, and let me just stop right there and say that I heard one of your interviews on a gal's website, Magdalena Winkler, Conscious Thought with Leo, and she hosts her show on our Speak Up Talk radio network, and that's how I met you. And I heard that conversation you had about the cell phone in your purse and the water bottle, and basically you're microwaving your water. And that's insane. And to carry that a step further, now you see cellular antennas on top of water towers in your local town. Oh, what is
yes,
that? What is that doing?
Crazy.
Yes.
That is absolutely. I know. I have pictures of those. That is how mankind, eradicates itself.
Exactly. Insanity. I always tell people, put the phone down and look up, because you're going to see some amazing things. In addition to the chemtrailing going on, look up at those water towers and notice the cell towers irradiating the water. It's insanity.
Which is totally ruins all the water which goes out to the community.
Absolutely. And we need to speak up as a community member to bring that to our legislative people and say, what are you doing here? And refer them to your website and to others that we've talked about, because this is a crime against humanity. Another question that you bring up that I'm sure no one thinks about, we've talked about it on the show. Have you replaced the light bulbs in your home with new CFL bulbs, the energy-saving fluorescent bulbs? Why is this a problem?
Because those bulbs have a number of issues. One of them is that they create a lot of so-called dirty electricity. Dirty electricity are spikes on the power signal, which usually a digital equipment also creates. This is a bigger topic, but it's just creating another level of EMF type of disturbance in the house, which wasn't there with the old light bulbs. Mm-hmm. And it's just another level of confusion for the body. And when the body is bombarded with all those signals, it's if you translate this or transfer this into an audible picture, it's like having a group of noisy children out your window, and you should work. And if you are rested and you come in the morning and you hear those kids out, you don't even hear them because you're rested and you're in good spirit and you do your work. If you did not sleep well and you stressed out all night and you barely could make it out of the house in the morning, you come to your work and the window is open and all these noisy kids are out there, you get a headache to start the day with already.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to lock yourself in, and so you're not functioning properly anymore the entire day. You can bring your maximum performance, and that's the same thing what happens with the cells in the body when they are bombarded by dirty electricity, by EMFs, by geopathic stress. They just at some point lose the ability to do their maximum performance, and their performance gets weaker and weaker. And at some point, they start to do weird things. They don't communicate with their neighbor cells anymore, and they start to growing wildly, and then we call this cancer.
Right, right. And then we visit our doctor with these hosts of symptoms that go undiagnosed, and you've got bigger problems there. So I'm going to ask you what some of the solutions are, and we've touched on some of those. And one of the things I want to mention is that you very kindly offered our listeners to go to your website to get a copy of your ebook that talks about your home. Explain that to us and where we can find that.
Yeah, that's one of my ebooks, and it's usually in my shop, but we talked before, and I'm happy to offer this as a gift for your listeners. The ebook is called Is Your House Affecting Your Health? Mm-hmm. And the way to get that would be, I have another website with a sign-up page for my newsletter. It's called harmonizeyourspace.com, and if you leave your email there, then I will send out. There is another automatic ebook on dowsing there, an overview of dowsing, but in addition, I will send you the free ebook about all those questions and more explanations. It's called Is Your House Affecting Your Health?
And it's a great, great, concise, tight, informational book, and I read it this morning, and I'm just thrilled about it. And I really want our listeners to head over to harmonizeyourspace.com, and enter your email address and get a copy of this, because I think it's really, really important for us to be aware of so that we can share that with our healthcare providers. Is there any other way that we can contact you and learn more? Do you want to give out a phone number or an email, or should we stick with that?
Absolutely. My phone numbers are on all my websites, and my email is there, email buttons everywhere, but I can just give you my phone number. It's 207-772-7888. So 3 8s at the end. You can directly reach me here at the Institute of Feng Shui and Geopathology, and we are on the East Coast here in Portland, Maine, so East Coast time. And I'm happy to answer questions or discuss your concerns. That's what I'm here for, and that's what I love to do. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about that.
Absolutely. I could talk to you forever. This is a very, very interesting and important topic. I want to ask you about your telephone number. That's an interesting number, 207-772-7888. I'm going to say that again, folks. Write it down. 207-772-7888. And I'm going to imagine that you picked that number.
I did. And it's nearly like a rhythm, 7888. It's a little song.
Yep.
But, 8 is a lucky number,
yep.
And 3 8, 888 in the Chinese idea is a lucky number.
I knew it. This was not a random number, folks. Be sure to write that down, 207-772-7888, and visit his website. So, folks, I hope that we made an impression today with Werner and the health ramifications of geopathic stress factors in our environment, and how some of our health issues just may not require a pill or invasive testing or surgery. Let's learn how to identify geopathic zones, how to read signs in nature, interpret sleeping patterns, watch the habits of your pet, practice methods like body dowsing, and will you give us the page for that, or the website for that, because that little simple exercise of personal body dowsing is important. What was that?
If you go to my shop site, there is a button to the shop site called geopathicstresssolutions.com. Mm-hmm. There is a button there that says energy testing, and you see a video there and the description of how body dowsing is done and how you can play around with that for yourself.
Excellent, excellent. All right, folks. And let's learn to find what the typical findings and the symptoms that they cause. And most importantly, head over to all of these websites. HarmonizeYourSpace.com, Geopathology.com has lots of excellent information. I'm going to post all of this on our website as well. Any final words of advice before we let you go today?
I would just say, aside of the medical care, prevention is really the one where you should head to, because if we always react to something which is wrong with our body, then we are already on the second boat here. But if we address this in advance, and if we are able to read the signs early, then we save so much energy and time and money at the end. So this is the way to go.
Excellent, excellent. We're all about prevention here. Thank you so much for your wisdom and taking the time to help us today. This is such an exciting and important topic. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us on Boil the Frog Slowly Radio. Please come back next week. And for more information, go to the website, boilthefrogradio.com. And until next week, remember to practice safe phone.
Boil the frog slowly, you're a frog in a pot. Turn up the heat and things will get hot. Will you jump out or will you burn? Listen to the show and you will return to Boil the Frog Slowly.